Well, it's over. The election is finally over. I was feeling like I just came out of the dentist's office after a months long root canal. And I could finally relax. And then the returns started coming in. And it was like the dentist called and said, I did the wrong tooth. You have to come back. Boy, it was an amusing, sickeningly amusing evening to watch. I watched the returns on MSNBC, and they started off all jubilant and bouncy. And Rachel Maddow, she loves election night, and she was excited. And as the returns started to come in, the atmosphere changed from jubilant to grim. And I got to admit, for several months now, since the beginning of September, I've had on one of my computer monitors, I've had a spreadsheet with all the states, the electoral college votes, what the polls were saying, the aggregate polls like 538.com, predictwise.com, realclearpolitics.com, what they were projecting, the Times, the Washington Post. And I could see what the numbers were going to look like. And I had assumed the polls were pretty accurate. And they were for most states, but for the few that really mattered, Florida, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, they were wrong. They were wrong. In all those months, in 3 months, I never saw Clinton's electoral college votes dip below 272. And last night, the polls, as usual, I have to say, the polls were proven wrong. They often are. What an evening. And now what? Really? Now what? I don't know. We have a Republican controlled Congress, both chambers, the Senate and the House of Representatives, and we have an extremist in the White House who claims to be Republican. Highly unlikely that the United States Supreme Court will ever be liberal, at least not in our lifetime, could become extreme conservative. I kind of feel sorry for the women who voted for Trump yesterday, because some of the things that I see at risk are, for example, Roe v. Wade. It might be that the conservatives are finally going to get that overturned and make abortions illegal again. We could see the end of Planned Parenthood clinics, or most of them. They could disappear from many of the states. No funding there. Maybe they'll even be extremely taxed to get rid of them. It'll be harder, much harder, for minorities to register to vote as Republican controlled states pass laws that make it very difficult for them to register. So voting may be more of a white privilege from now on in this country, in many states. Women can forget about equal pay. I feel sorry for the people who have insurance through the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare. They might lose. It's a high probability that they could lose their insurance if Congress finally succeeds in getting rid of, appealing, revoking, whatever the word is, getting rid of Obamacare. Things are going to change. I try not to be a pessimistic person. My dad was. My dad was a pessimist. And they were both bigots. When I was growing up, I tried not to make myself like them. I wanted to be different. I had a black girlfriend in high school. My dad did not like that. But it's hard to be optimistic with what I see coming, changes that I see happening, because I know that there are extreme conservatives who, now that they feel the power, now that there isn't a Democratic president to veto their bills, I just see them finally saying, okay, now we can make the changes we've been wanting to make for a long time. And we're going to see, I think, some serious rights and privileges taken away. I think our rights are in danger. And I'm not feeling positive about it. There are some things that could change. What's his name? Schmidt mentioned on TV last night that we're going to see a new Republican Party because the Republican Party was so shattered by what was happening with Trump running for president that it was like there were like three different Republican parties all warring with each other. I don't know whether that'll be a good thing or a bad thing. One thing I did hear on TV that I thought was promising was that the old Republican guard, they're just getting so old now that people like Mitch McConnell and John McCain, that those people are going to be phased out. They have to. They're getting too old. And hopefully the newer, younger Republicans that will replace them will be more moderate. I did read an article about a week ago. I can't remember whether it was the Huffington Post or the Washington Post, but it said that there's a new civil war in this country now. It's not it's not between the North and the South. It's between the blues and the reds. Excuse me. And their weapons aren't muskets and rifles. Their weapons are votes. We saw that last night. The Republicans, the Reds, won the battle last night. I don't know where that war is going. I don't know what the outcome will be. You know, there's always innocent civilians who are victims in war. There's, what is it, something lateral damage, collateral damage. What will that be? I do see an ultra conservative Supreme Court, and I do see many rights, especially some of the important rights of women, being overturned. And what can anyone say? You know, what can anyone say? You voted for him. It's like the people who voted for George W. Bush. And what happened? The economy tanked. What they call the Great Recession now. We had a ridiculous war in Iraq that we couldn't win, our second Vietnam, although many tried to avoid using that term. It was another Vietnam. We screwed up Iraq. We screwed up Libya. Country after country, we messed up. We didn't do very well in Egypt, Afghanistan, Iran, parts of northern Africa. Now what? Now what? Are we going to see American troops be sent into Iraq and Syria in large numbers? Will Americans see their young men and women coming home, either draped in a flag, to be buried in Arlington, or come back physically or psychologically damaged from going to war? The economy is going to tank for at least a while. During the night, the Dow Jones Industrial Futures lost 800 points. The NASDAQ and the S&P futures were both halted as far as trading because they reached the break point. There are these like breaks in the market that once it drops to a certain point, automatically all trading is made to stop to prevent a full-on crash. I haven't even looked yet. I'm kind of afraid to. But what are the markets doing today now that the Wall Street has opened. I don't know. I wish I could be optimistic, but I just don't know. I'm looking for reasons to be optimistic. If anything, if there's any optimism, maybe the voters will learn their lesson this time. That you can't just vote against what you don't like. You have to think about what you're voting for. I had a discussion with a politician a couple of years ago, and she wanted me to vote for her, and I said, it's very difficult for me to get to the polls. And it's not because, I can walk. It's just up the street. I walked by the polls last night when I went to the store. I told her, too many Americans, they get upset, they get angry with their government, and so they vote against them. It's like they go to the polls and they say, oh yeah, we're going to show you a thing or two. We're going to vote for your opponent. But they don't realize what they're really voting for, who they're giving power to. They just know they're registering their complaint. That's what the voting is for a lot of them, is an opportunity for them for their complaint to be heard. And they use the voting booth to register a complaint. But it's too late when the opposition gets in, and the opposition has policies that could take away some very cherished rights of Americans. I wish I could be optimistic. It's like the only thing I'm looking forward to right now, here it is Wednesday morning, is I'm looking forward to tonight's episode of South Park. I am, because 2 weeks ago, the last episode, they didn't do a new episode last week. They skipped a week. But 2 weeks ago, the previous episode ended with the Caitlyn Jenner character saying, "Buckle up, buckaroos." Boy, she couldn't have said it better. Buckle up, buckaroos. That's what it was last night. It's like riding a bronking horse and trying to stay strapped in. What an evening. Oh well. I wonder what the other nations are thinking about us. How much are they laughing? We do have a strange political system in this country, and I think it's because people are so angry with their government. For years, we've been seeing obstruction. It's difficult for a president to get good bills passed. President Obama went on TV a few days ago, and he said that he even proposed to Congress bills that the Republicans had wanted. These were bills that they had wanted. He proposed them, kind of like just reshaped them a little bit and proposed them to Congress. And they voted no, because they just cannot do anything to help a Democratic president. Bills that they wanted, laws that they wanted changed, or they couldn't do it. People are upset. We pay our taxes. You go to the store, you buy a TV, you bring it home, it doesn't work. What do? You bring it back, and you get an exchange or you get a refund. You get your money back. You want your money's worth. We pay our taxes. Are we getting our money's worth? A lot of people say no. They're angry. We pay our politicians to do their job, and they won't do it. So people are angry. And this is the result. They go into the voting booth and they say, oh yeah, watch this. And they vote against their president. I don't know. I don't see, I'm trying to be optimistic here, but I just don't see it yet. And I hope the future will prove me wrong.